Welcome into a special edition of a Chiefs regular season schedule breakdown here on KCTV5. It's Jared Koller and Neal Jones. Now, if you've watched us through the past years, you've seen us down in the studio, but tonight we are coming to you live with in-depth Chiefs schedule analysis week by week. Now, normally in past years, I can edit this and all the things that Neal says that make sense. I edit that out to make me look smarter. The problem with this, it's live, so you're going to get unfiltered Neal. Neal, are you excited about this opportunity?
I'm less excited about trying to figure out what the entire schedule means because I don't know. I think if anything we learned last year is that, Jared, you can't count on everything to go the way you expect, starting with week one. I don't know too many of us who predicted that the Detroit Lions would come into Arrowhead and knock off the defending champions, but that's because we didn't have any idea the way this offense and the wide receivers were going to play the first half, 3/4 of the season.
Yeah, well, let alone that it'd be a game without Travis Kelce, his first game missed to injury since 2013, or that the holdout that we knew about last May would continue into week one for Chris Jones. Of course, they rebounded to a degree, still struggled through the regular season, but right now, Neal, it's all sunshine and rainbows because the Chiefs are going for a third straight Super Bowl.
But so, guess what I was getting at is that it's hard. I get excited about the individual games and finding out, okay, they're on prime time here or they're playing, different venues and things like that. That's interesting. But in terms of trying to pick wins and losses, I just think that it's so hard now. The season is so long, and we all know that so much of it comes down to injuries, as you referenced with week one of last year when they played without their tight end. So it's just hard for me. But in terms of getting excited, you start to see the flow of the season. It is exciting.
Yeah, it's an exciting time of year because now we can go week by week. We can map it out and see the road back to the postseason, back to potentially a seventh straight AFC Championship game, another Super Bowl. It's here, Neal. We are closer to the Chiefs preseason than we are to the last Chiefs Super Bowl. That means football season is close to arriving here in Kansas City. So how this is going to work, we're going to first look at the schedule as a whole, give an overall breakdown. Then we are going to literally go week by week talking about each game and the top storylines that have our interest. And we thank you for joining us along for this ride. If you have any questions, feel free to hit us up. So here you go. Here's the schedule in all of its glory. It is finally here altogether. 7 games broadcast right here on KCTV5, 8 national standalone games, and 5 primetime games. The Chiefs altogether have the 16th toughest strength of schedule in the NFL, 10th toughest in the AFC. That is based on 2023 combined opponent win percentage of .502. Now, if you go by the odds makers, though, KC actually has the 21st toughest schedule based on projected win totals from Vegas. Kansas City has 9 games against teams with a winning record last season and 7 versus last year's playoff teams. That would be the Ravens, Texans, Bills, Browns, Steelers, 49ers, and Bucks. Those are the games really circled. The Chiefs will start the regular season with back-to-back home games for the first time since 2003. Yeah, that was a pretty good regular season. But that also, of course, means Kansas City will play only 6 home games over the season's final 16 weeks. The Chiefs, of course, are coming off an 11-6 regular season campaign. One of those wins coming with a backup, so the starters only won 10 games last year, but it still capped an 8th straight AFC West division title. Andy Reid has led KC to the postseason 10 of the last 11 years, reaching 6 straight AFC Championship games, 5 of which at Arrowhead, culminating with 3 straight Super Bowl victories in 2020. With 3 Super Bowl victories. They're hoping for 3 straight, dating back to 2020, 23, and 24. Finally, of course, they hope to end the season in New Orleans, Louisiana, where KU won the Final Four most recently. Super Bowl LIX, or Super Bowl 59, scheduled for February 9th, 2025 at the Caesars Superdome. So, Neal, when you look at all that together, it's a lot easier of a schedule than we've seen perhaps in past years because people don't think the division is going to be as good as maybe in past years. The NFC South, not as strong as maybe some of the other cross-conference draws that they've gotten in the past. So I think altogether it's not a bad, tough games, but altogether I like the schedule for the Chiefs.
The one thing you have to ask yourself, though, is this year's team coming up in 2024 going to be like last season's team? Because you could argue that the Chiefs were a significantly better team on the road than they were at home. I don't think that's necessarily true, but it's true that they coughed up some games at home and lost to some people like the Raiders on Christmas Day that you would not have expected. So suddenly, look, I think that they should be favored to win almost every single game they play if their quarterback and their key players are healthy, but that's not going to happen. Eventually, Patrick Mahomes is going to get hurt and miss multiple games in a row. It's going to happen. It happened a couple of times where obviously the knee injury that he suffered and they missed the Packers game. He could not play in the Packers game later. Look, the fact of the matter is that eventually this run of 8 straight championships is going to end. The Broncos thought that they were on the roll. Oh, we're going to be forever. They won 5 in a row. And then they win the Super Bowl, and then they crash and burn because they couldn't replace their quarterback. So eventually it's going to come out. The Chiefs' run in the AFC West is going to end. I don't see it happening this year.
I don't even want to think about that, Neil. I agree that one day we're going to look back at these as the glory days, the golden age of Chiefs football, right? But right now, with the kind of the draw, I thought they had a very good draft. I don't know if this team is built for success 15 years down the road, but I think they're built for success right now.
Well, look, let's see what happened. The one Super Bowl they lost, they didn't lose because they were a bad football team. They lost because they were a bad offensive line, not because of injury. They lose both tackles, and they were weak. They did not have depth at that position. So are they going to be better or worse at tackle than they were a year ago?
That's one of the biggest
question marks. You can't guarantee it. That's the question mark.
And so that brings in to week 1 because whoever starts at left tackle, like if it's Wanya Morris or Kingsley Suamatia, going to be inexperienced. And that's one of the storylines for week 1 is that week 1 draw and starting off with a tough opponent in the form of AFC Championship game rematch. So let's talk about it. Kansas City will raise a Super Bowl banner to kick off the NFL's 2024-25 regular season under the primetime Arrowhead Thursday night lights. Chiefs, of course, opened up the NFL season in 2017 with a 42-27 road upset win over then Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Then they kicked off the 2020 season as defending champs with a 34-20 victory over the Houston Texans at Arrowhead, and then most recently lost the 2023 season opener last year to the Detroit Lions at home, 21-20. Now, of course, as we mentioned, last season's loss came without two of the team's top players, Kelsey due to injury, Chris Jones due to holdout. The loss snapped Kansas City's mark of 8 straight Week 1 victories. The Kadarius Toney drop led to the first career season opener interception for Patrick Mahomes, because even with that, Neil, 6 starts for Patrick Mahomes in Week 1, 21 touchdowns, just 1 interception, and 294 passing yards per game. So, Neil, first, before we get to the Ravens, let's talk about Week 1. I love the Chiefs because they have so much time to prepare. I love the Chiefs in Week 1 games. Didn't pay out last year, but I think that was fluky with the injuries, with the drops. They still could have won, should have won. I like having a tough opponent at the start because I don't think the Chiefs are going to overlook a Week 1 game.
Yeah, especially against a team like the Ravens, who were so good last year. I think the Chiefs win this football game based on past performances and the fact that, as you said, Andy Reid and his veteran coaching staff have been very good early in the year. But let's face it, if the Chiefs lost this game and then lost to the Bengals, it would not be the end of the world. It's such a long season, and we've seen this a couple of times with the Chiefs, that they have played their best football late in the year, and they get on runs. Under Andy Reid, last year was one of the rare years where they didn't go on a 7 or 8 game winning streak. They had after losing the first game of the year, they had a nice winning streak until the Eagles came to town. So I think that while these opening 2 games are going to be very, very difficult, the Bengals, by all accounts, better than they were a year ago because they're going to have their starting quarterback back, and certainly Burrow and the Bengals have confidence coming in. But the bottom line is, even if the Chiefs were to start 0-2 with both of those losses coming at home, I don't know that anybody in the NFL would say their season's over.
I think some people here in Kansas City may think the sky is falling because we've been spoiled. But, yeah, I'd definitely take a 1-1. 0-2, I partly because the Bengals might be on the downslope. I think they might have missed their window to a degree. And the Ravens, the Chiefs have had their number. I would be a little bit surprised if they went 0-2, but I'd take 1-1. But let's talk about the Ravens here, because that's not an easy opponent, as you just said, even with the success. As if the league opening week didn't have enough storylines, this is a rematch from the AFC title game. Chiefs ended Baltimore's season. Neil, you were at the game. 17-10 the final score. Travis Kelce, 11 receptions, 116 yards, and a touchdown. But, of course, the Kansas City defense had 3 takeaways, headlined by L'Jarius Sneed's goal line forced fumble of then rookie Zay Flowers. Now, quarterbacks Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes headlined the showdown. It's why they picked this game. Each is 2-time NFL MVPs, taking home the league's top regular season award in 4 of the last 6 seasons, along with Aaron Rodgers. KC, though, 4-1 against Jackson, with Mahomes' quarterback Andy Reid 5-1 against his former assistant turned Ravens head coach John Harbaugh. However, the last regular season meeting was a Chiefs loss in Baltimore in 2021, but just by 1 point, partly because of Clyde Edwards-Helaire late fumble. But, of course, the game's at Arrowhead, which, Neil, as you know, good memories against the Ravens, most specifically that first-ever Mahomes-Jackson battle when Mahomes had that famous no-look pass to Demarcus Robinson and that game-saving 48-yard completion to Tyreek Hill on 4th and 9. Chiefs fans hoping for similar fireworks. I think this will be a good game. But when push comes to shove, Neil, I have a hard time thinking that Lamar Jackson, for as good as he is going to beat Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if he has it in him.
Well, I'm not sure how good the Chiefs' offense will be because they're going to be counting on who knows who at wide receiver. Yeah. And there's a good chance that Xavier Worthy is going to be asked to play a significant role. And as you know, that is very difficult for true rookies to do. You know, guys who – I'm not talking about guys who've been banging around and finally getting their chance to play. I'm talking about a kid who's coming straight from college and asked to play a position that's a lot more intricate than most people realize. There's a reason that most rookies don't succeed in the NFL at wide receiver right away.
And he's really young, younger than most rookies.
And he is really, really talented. He's got so much speed, and I have so much confidence in Andy Reid and the quarterback that I do think he will be successful. But my point is, you don't know what to expect from the Chiefs offense. I think the Chiefs win this game if for no other reason that their defense carried them in Baltimore. Their defense, both in Buffalo and in Baltimore, dominated the second half of those football games and turned really, really productive, good offenses into nothing. And the Ravens, yeah, they had that great play and they had that deep pass ball, and then they get the fumble. But the bottom line is that was one of the rare times they moved the football and had a chance to make a big play. Yep. Steve Spagnuolo's defense really was impressive, and I think that gives the Chiefs an advantage. And I'm telling you something else. I agree with you. Until Lamar Jackson gets it done against Andy Reid and the Chiefs, I'm going to give the benefit to the Chiefs. I think that they'll win the football game.
Did it once, but I'm more scared of other teams on the schedule, to be honest. Now, if they had a short week or, even if this was on the road, but having it on the night they will unveil another Super Bowl banner, the juices will be flowing. Now, they always are for primetime games. It's not like the Chiefs are only going to play good because of the spotlight, but I have a hard time thinking the Chiefs will lose this game. But I said that last year against the Detroit Lions. Anything could happen.
Plus, remember that game you referenced? I mean, they hung the banner up at Foxborough Stadium, and what happens?
Alex Smith, Kareem Hunt. Yeah, that was a great game. Season openers, fun, win or lose. Hopefully they win. But again, even if they win or lose, they're going to have no time to either celebrate or sulk because the Bengals are coming up next. Another tough game. They'll have a longer time to prepare than the Bengals because playing on Thursday night. But of course, this is one of the NFL's best rivalry because they've met for 6. This will be the 6th meeting in the last 3 calendar years, Neil. Cincinnati, considered one of the top contenders because they beat the Chiefs 3 times in 2022, including that year's AFC Championship game at Arrowhead where Kansas City blew a 21-3 lead. Bengals have won 7 of the last 10 matchups, but the Chiefs, of course, did get revenge in the 2023 conference title game and then again in last year on New Year's Day. 25-17 win at Arrowhead included 165 total yards from Isaiah Pacheco and 6 sacks of then Bengals quarterback Jake Browning because Bengals starting quarterback Joe Burrow missed the game due to injury, with before that each of the last 4 Mahomes-Burrow showdowns, Neil, decided by exactly 3 points. Casey's glad to have the game at Arrowhead since, Chiefs haven't won in Cincinnati since 1984. But on the other side, the Week 2 draw, that kind of does benefit the Bengals, who are more likely to have the injury-prone Burrow available. So, Neil, this also brings the return of Orlando Brown, his second season as Cincinnati's left tackle after winning the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. Bengals-Chiefs, it's one of the bigger rivalries, but after last season, maybe doesn't bring as much juice. What do you think of this matchup?
Well, I'm thinking the Bengals are going to come in loaded for bear. I mean, they're really they have got to be killing themselves because they haven't been able to get over the hump when it counts against the Chiefs, with the exception of that one game where Patrick Mahomes and company had a meltdown in the second half of that contest. And really, the meltdown started at the very end of the first half of that game.
Yep.
So I would think that the Bengals would have a real edge and bring an attitude. Whether that'll be enough to win, I don't know. I know this. They played the Chiefs awfully tough without Joe Burrow last year.
Yeah.
And it was a tough game. Big win for the Chiefs. An important win for the Chiefs as well.
That was, that was the week after the Chiefs lost to the Raiders on Christmas Day. And they really turned out. Rashee Rice had a big game. I mentioned Pacheco. The Bengals really shut down Travis Kelce, and the Chiefs still won, which was something at that point in the year we didn't know was possible. Like I said, the pass rush really got after him. Jamar Chase was talking a lot of trash. We will see that again. But L'Jarius Sneed no longer on the Chiefs, so we'll see if maybe now he goes at Trent McDuffie. I don't know, but I like this rivalry. Of course, remember, had the Bengals beaten the Chiefs in that second AFC Championship game, they were saying they're going to rename Arrowhead to Burrowhead. We had the whole mayor, Kelsey calling him a jabroni. I think now the fact that this is the first time Burrow versus Mahomes since then, this is a rivalry game that the NFL should be excited about.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. And where can we see that?
Oh,
KCTV5.
Company Man, right there. I'll throw it back on the logo. The first game that you can see here on KCTV5, 3:25 kickoff. Then the Chiefs hit the road for the first time this season, going to Atlanta for the first time since 2016. Sunday Night Football, the stage. A lot has changed since the last time. Alex Smith battled eventual MVP Matt Ryan in their last visit to A-Town, with KC needing an Eric Berry pick six and late defensive two-point conversion to beat the Falcons 29-28, one of the best single-handed performance on a defensive side of the ball I've ever won. Eric Berry really won that game. Only 3 players left from that game: Travis Kelce, James Winchester, and a young Chris Jones. While the Falcons carousel, well, now it features their newest first-round pick out of Washington, quarterback Michael Penix Jr., or newly signed veteran quarterback Kirk Cousins, who figures to start, but still interesting that they spent that 8th overall pick on Penix. New head coach Raheem Morris gets his second crack as NFL coach after some time in Tampa Bay, taking over for Arthur Smith after 3 straight 7-win seasons. KC most recently beat the Falcons at Arrowhead in 2020. This is the first of 4 games against the NFC South, a division the Chiefs swept in 2021. In fact, KC had won 15 straight regular season games versus the NFC before losing 3 cross-conference matchups to Detroit, Philly, and Green Bay last season. So they can no longer bank on that, Neal. Falcons, a weird team. They figure to be a lot better with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. They've got some talent, haven't really been able to put up consistent success. Now, this will be a big game, prime time on the road. Is this a sneaky game to watch out for after 2, what on paper looks like marquee matchups against the Ravens and Bengals?
A lot of moving parts in Atlanta. And as you said, Raheem Morris, who used to be a defensive coach for the Kansas State Wildcats on that staff with Ron Prince, a really neat guy, really smart guy, but I'm not sure what they are doing there. They are in disarray in some ways. No team took more heat after the draft because they take a quarterback after signing a veteran, Kirk Cousins, to a long-term, very rich deal. And with the salary cap, that's not the smartest thing to do. A lot of question marks. I'm not sure that the Chiefs are getting them. I think the Chiefs are getting them at the perfect time because I don't know. Eventually, the Falcons may be a good football team this season because they've got a lot of good players. I'm not sure that the first month is going to be their best time. I do radio in Atlanta, and they're talking about how they have got so many question marks. This will be an interesting matchup from their standpoint, a chance for them to measure themselves against the NFL's best.
Yeah, I think it is an important game. One, for the Falcons to prove they can do anything, but also for the Chiefs because you're coming off 2 big home games, whatever your record is. You want to win this one because then you're going on the road again to Los Angeles, and I think that's a tougher matchup. I think they've got a better quarterback, and now they've got a strong head coach. They always play the Chiefs tough, as we'll get into. So I think Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. We saw him almost beat the Chiefs last year with the Minnesota Vikings, but I think this is one where if the Chiefs want to have the season that they want to have, I don't think they can lose this game, especially if they're 2-0, great. But I think the expectation is they probably start 1-1. This is an important game going into the Chargers game. New look Chargers, But really, it's been the same old Chargers for a couple decades because, Neal, the Chiefs have won 17 of the last 20 games against Los Angeles, with one of those losses at the hands of Chad Henne's backups in 2021. So that is kind of even skews it a little bit. But, hey, don't confuse overall dominance with game-by-game dominance because 5 of the last 6 meetings have been decided by one score. In fact, the last 4 games in Los Angeles, well, they've lived up to the Hollywood billing, each with game-winning scores in the game's final minute. Travis Kelce scoring the winning touchdowns in 2021 and 22. Harrison Butker kicking the game-winning field goals in 2020 and 2024. But, of course, the Chargers fired Brandon Staley after a 5-12 campaign, now led by former 49ers, Stanford, and most recently Michigan national championship winning coach Jim Harbaugh. Justin Herbert back at quarterback for his 5th season. Mahomes 15-4 in September. AFC West battle, Neal. Chiefs, Chargers, same old, close game. What do you expect here?
Well, Jim Harbaugh adds something to the mix. There's no question about it. Whether you like him or hate him, the guy can coach. He really can. He did a great job at Stanford, but then look at the job he did with the 49ers.
Yes.
He resurrects the career of Alex Smith, a quarterback who was the fans out there and a lot of people in the NFL were ready to throw him on the trash heap. The overall #1 pick out of Utah, who had been a complete failure within the 49ers, until he gets for a guy who knows how to coach offense, coach defense.
Yeah.
He brings in a good coordinator,
good leader.
and the next thing you know, Alex Smith is having great numbers. He gets injured. What do? They bring his backup in. They go to the Super Bowl game. Jim Harbaugh is a special, special man. He will help that quarterback. He will help that football team. The question is, will he be able to do it in time to take down the Chiefs in week 4?
Yeah.
It might be good that the Chiefs are getting them a little earlier rather than having 2 late games. And the other thing about going on the road to San Diego / LA is there are no San Diego / Charger fans in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody cares, so it's almost like a home game for the Chiefs.
It always has been. Patrick Mahomes' first ever start was, on the road against the Chargers, and there were more Chiefs fans there, and I think that has continued. I agree. I think Harbaugh's a great coach because of the fact that he's won with 2 quarterbacks. We're seeing Bill Belichick. He couldn't really win after Tom Brady. We know Andy Reid, the ultimate quarterback guru, has now won with a handful of ones. I think the Chargers are going to be a solid test, but I agree this is a little early to have it. I like the Chiefs' chances. And, hey, Neal, that wraps up quarter #1, if you can believe it. Like I said, I think 3-1 is best-case scenario. I think 2-2, the sky isn't falling. You got to avoid a 1-3 start, really putting yourself in the hole. It's an interesting quarter, but what also makes it a little bit more interesting is they've got a bye week coming up not long after, so they want to get a good start to have some good momentum heading into that bye. The last game before the bye is against the New Orleans Saints. Now, of course, the Chiefs hope to end the season in New Orleans for Super Bowl 59, but first, a Monday Night Football test. First-time former Chiefs fan favorite safety Tyrann Mathieu will face his former Super Bowl winning team. He's in his 3rd season close to home in Louisiana. Dennis Allen also back as head coach after a 9-8 campaign. On defense, the Saints signed 2-time Super Bowl champion linebacker Willie Gay this offseason, while Derek Carr is taking over as quarterback. The former Raiders gunslinger 3-14 all-time against Kansas City. Of course, New Orleans also drafted former Sooner and Gamecock Spencer Rattler. He doesn't figure to start at this point, but could be a quarterback of the future. Each of Casey's last 3 meetings against the Saints have come down to 6 points or less. Neal, your thoughts on the Saints marching into town?
There are people who believe the Saints should have been a playoff team last year. There were games they had an opportunity to win. If they had won a couple more, they make the playoffs. I think they feel like that they are capable of challenging anybody in the NFL. That'll be an interesting game. It can be a really loud venue when the Saints are playing well, and you know that they'll be all excited about a primetime game against the defending Super Bowl champion.
The game is at Arrowhead, so it will be a loud venue at Arrowhead. That I think it's Monday Night Football. Listen, I know we're used to primetime games, but Neal, anytime you can play under the primetime lights, it always brings some juice, especially because, well, if you look at it, the Chiefs will host the Saints on October 7th. Then they're not back at Arrowhead until November 4th. So get out your yelling on that night because it's going to be a lot of silent after that because you're sleeping on week 6. Neal, this is an early bye. I don't like this. I want to buy late in the season.
I agree 100%. I think you're much better off having a bye in the second half of the season, but it is what it is. I mean, you got to play with it. Andy Reid doesn't worry about stuff like this. He accepts it and moves on. And if anybody knows how to handle and coach a team through a weird schedule with a lot of primetime games, a lot of games on times other than noon on Sunday, Andy Reid's proven he can do it.
Yeah, we should mention that Chiefs are going to play on Sunday, on a Monday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, on a Friday, on a Saturday. Tuesday is left out, Neal. I'm thinking maybe a Monday night game could go really, really long to play into Tuesday so we can say they played on 7 days a week. It's a weird schedule.
It is, and I think a lot of Chiefs fans are a little sick of it. I think that people like Sunday afternoon football games. People schedule their lives around stuff like that. And
heavy is the crown. When you got Mahomes and Kelsey and Taylor Swift, everyone wants the Chiefs.
No, there's no question about that. Plus, the network contracts have changed, so you can't protect as many games. It used to be CBS had the AFC, and they could protect. There were only so many times they could lose that. That's been thrown away. Everybody pays a lot of money. Everybody wants a chance at it. So the Chiefs are going to be playing some games. I'm not real thrilled about some of them, but it is what it is.
Yep, like I said, networks will pay a lot of money to have that exclusive window. Now, after the bye week, boy, we got a lot to talk about with this one, Neal. One of the biggest games of the year. After beating the 49ers in both Super Bowl 54 and 58, the regular season edition, very anticipated. Kyle Shanahan's team led Kansas City by 10 points with less than 7 minutes to play in the 2020 Super Bowl, only for KC to come back and score 21 unanswered to win the title. Then the Chiefs again trailed by double digits in the big game this past February. Neal Jones was in the building, and once again, Chiefs even let up a go-ahead score with less than 2 minutes to play before ultimately coming back for a 25-22 overtime victory. With the Super Bowl on the line, Mahomes led Kansas City 64 yards in the final 2 minutes for the game-time field goal, then led KC 75 yards for the game-winning touchdown into McCole Hardman, accounting for 69 of the Chiefs' 75 overtime yards. The San Francisco 49ers remember that well, Neal. You know they will be playing with revenge, especially because Kansas City's won 4 straight games against the 49ers in 4 different cities, including the most recent road trip to San Fran, 44-23, that blowout in 2022. In fact, the Chiefs haven't beaten the 49ers haven't beaten the Chiefs since 2014. On the same day, the Royals swept the Angels in the ALDS. But nobody remembers that game because we were popping champagne bottles at the K. Either way, it's been a long time. There's a lot of ties here. What do you make of this Super Bowl rematch?
It's going to come on October 20th. So what we're talking about is, by now, that is an eternity in NFL times, right? Yeah. With turnover, with players, with free agency. The fact is, these are going to be 2 very different teams than what played in the Super Bowl. And how many guys left over from that Super Bowl win down in Miami? Not a lot. I mean, a few of the players are the same, but the quarterback for the 49ers situation has changed considerably. They move on finally from Garoppolo. I think they got the right guy in there. And the fact is, I thought that they played a pretty good football game. These Chiefs wins have not been by 42 points. They've been by a touchdown or less all through the playoffs. And that's the margin of error in the NFL. Everything we do, we talk about Mahomes, we talk about the Chiefs offense, we talk about Andy Reid. What we don't factor in is balls bouncing off receivers' hands and get returned for a pick six. Yeah. There's so many things that can happen.
Punt fumble.
It is hard to know, but I know this. The 49ers have a lot of great players. They match up well with the Chiefs in a lot of ways. It'll be interesting to see what happens on October 20th out in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I think this rematch brings a lot more juice than the last time they met after a couple of years because I do think there's a lot of similarities. You've got the quarterbacks back, you got the head coaches back, and partly because the 49ers think they should have won that game because they were that close. And they're going – I think maybe it means more to the fans than it does to some of those players, but I think they'll be out for blood. This is one of my favorite cross-conference rivalries in the NFL because of the postseason success, but because of the ties. If you remember, Mahomes' first career start at Arrowhead came against the 49ers, his first career home touchdown pass to eventual 49er Chris Conley. Charvarius Ward is a current 49ers defensive back who won a Super Bowl with Kansas City, beating the 49ers, then lost to the Chiefs last year as a 49er. Of course, the Alex Smith trade, of course, the history. But this is a game the NFL will all be watching across the world because it's the second straight year at the Super Bowl rematch. But last year's rematch, as we saw, didn't go Chiefs' way when Philadelphia came into Arrowhead and beat Kansas City. Of note, though, outside of the expected scheduling against the AFC and NFC South this year, this counts as Kansas City's additional opponent in ninth road game to make a 17-game schedule. So if this were a couple of years ago, we wouldn't have this game. Thus, it brings a lot of juice. And, of course, Neal, I couldn't talk about a game after the bye without talking about Andy Reid. 29-5 all-time after a bye, Mahomes 10-1. But that one loss came last year after a bye against Philly. So do you like their chances coming off an early bye, or does maybe that neutralize it because this is a Week 6 bye, one of the first in the NFL?
No, Andy Reid, this is not about rest. His success has not been about resting his team. His success has come because he's out-coached people.
Yep.
He is what he is. I mean, he's been paired up with this unbelievable savant at quarterback, the perfect trigger to run his offense, and he can deliver the football on a dime from any direction. He can do it on the run. He can go run to his left and square up and throw the ball. He can run to his right and just absolutely destroy you. He's got weapons on the outside again, which he didn't have a year ago.
Yes.
No, Andy Reid is special for a lot of reasons beyond having, hey, we had an extra week than the other team. I mean, that's the reality.
No, for sure. And speaking of speed, Hollywood Brown, I should have mentioned that in the Ravens. He's playing his old team there, and they will really count on him, especially if they don't have Rashee Rice. Again, that's where, some people are talking about if the suspension comes down before the season, maybe an 8-game suspension. Well, that's where we're looking at not seeing Rice until Week 9 against Tampa Bay. If that, of course, comes to fruition, who knows if that'll be. But before they get back to Arrowhead, they round out the road trip at Las Vegas. Neal, the site, the very field where they won the Super Bowl in February, it will now always hold a special place in Chiefs history heart. They play the Raiders right before Halloween. Kansas City 4-0 when visiting Las Vegas since the Raiders moved from Oakland to Sin City. Antonio Pierce enters his first full season as Raiders head coach, hoping to provide some stability, Neal, after John Gruden, Rich Bisaccia, Josh McDaniels, and Pierce, as interim last year, have all held the title the last 3 seasons. Listen, Raiders have only made the play this. If they make the playoffs this year, it'd be just the 3rd time in the last 22 seasons. I don't really fear the Raiders, but they did beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead at the end of last year, so it's a divisional game. You can never overlook it, I guess.
And a lot of those games out in Vegas have been very close games, won by the Chiefs on the final possession. Whoever had the ball last won. And Pierce, what's his record against the Chiefs?
Yeah, good. Well, former he was a linebacker under Steve Spagnuolo, so he knows Spag's scheme a little bit.
Well, the fact is that they came in and handed the Chiefs their most bitter loss of last year. I say that because it was on Christmas Day. You win, you clinch the division. The way they lost it, the Raiders had no offense whatsoever, but they lose it on a pick six. 33 seconds after they have a scoop and score where they fumble the football and scoop and score on a trick play inside their own 10-yard line. It was just as terrible a defeat as Andy Reid's had. And it was so bad that it was like a slap in the face, and this football team never looked back. They played a different style on offense. They coached it differently, and they go on and they win their last 6 games?
Yeah, I woke them up. That's the best part. They didn't lose again. But with that said, I think it almost played in the Chiefs' lookover factor because it was at Arrowhead. I think they'll get up more for that Vegas venue, especially because that's where they won the Super Bowl. I know that doesn't change the game, but I don't think this is one where they're going to come out flat against the Raiders. And if they bring their A game, I have a hard time picking the Raiders over the Chiefs. So I actually like this one. The sneaky game here, Neal, is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team coming back to Arrowhead for Monday Night Football to kick off November. First time the Chiefs have hosted the Bucs since losing to Tampa Bay back in Super Bowl 55. And it's the Bucs' first trip to Arrowhead since 2016. But, of course, first since then also without Tom Brady on the other sideline. KC did go 2-1 against the former Pats quarterback, winning both regular season matchups on the road. But now it's Baker Mayfield's turn. It's his 4th team. But listen, he took the Bucs to a division title and a postseason victory last year. We saw him almost beat the Chiefs in the playoffs for the Browns a couple of years ago. I think Baker Mayfield's an underrated quarterback. It's the 4th meeting over the last 5 seasons, so a rare familiarity between these two teams now with Todd Bowles as head coach. But, of course, the Chiefs most recently dropped 41 points on Bowles' defense back in 2022. You know, Neal, I think this is one that might not stand out to Chiefs fans, but this is a game that I think could surprise some Chiefs fans on how close it is. Maybe even the Bucs win.
Well, this is in the first week of November.
Yep.
So who knows who will be healthy at that point? Who knows what the teams are going to be doing? The Bucs were incredibly young last year. They went from being the oldest team in the NFL with Tom Brady and what they had built around him, a lot of veteran guys. They understood we're going for it, which means we're going to pay a lot of older guys a lot of money, and then we're going to be in salary cap hell for a while. And to bounce back from that after they were able to afford to bring in Baker Mayfield, they were able to keep him on a very team-friendly contract. Baker Mayfield appreciated the opportunity to play there after a couple of teams had given up on him. He was glad to be with the winner. They scared the Lions a little bit on the road. They were not the better team, but the Bucs are a decent football team. They were really young last year. The narrative down there is that they will surprise people this year. They feel like they have an opportunity to make a deeper run because a lot of the kids have played a lot of significant snaps, and they think that'll make them a better football team.
I compare this game to the Packers game last year for the Chiefs and the Lions game last year. For on the schedule, it's an NFC team that we don't see necessarily as much, maybe don't know as much about, but one that I think surprised. Listen, I don't think many Chiefs fans thought they'd lose to the Lions or lose to the Packers after Jordan Love really struggled, and look what happened. I think this is similar. The Bucs are going to lose some games before this matchup, but on that given Monday night, if the Chiefs don't play well, they could lose. But that brings us, Neal, to the third quarter of the season, and the Denver Broncos come to town. You said one of the worst losses of Andy Reid's career was against the Raiders at home. I think the Broncos lost in Denver last year in the snow when Mahomes had the flu. They got blown out. I think that's right up there. I thought they did not play well at all that game, and so this is the first meeting since then. Of course, the Chiefs don't hate the Broncos as much as they used to, Neal, because if you remember, the Chiefs lost 7 straight games to the Broncos in the Peyton Manning era, but then Kansas City won 16 straight games over Denver before losing last season, as I mentioned. After winning the Super Bowl in 2015, the Broncos have yet to turn in a double-digit win season. Now they've got Sean Payton as head coach after 15 seasons in New Orleans, 2009 Super Bowl champs, but he wasn't exactly turning the ship around too much last year, so they parted ways with Pro Bowl quarterback Russell Wilson, who's now in Pittsburgh. They drafted Oregon's Bo Nix in the first round. I don't know what to make of this Broncos team. Of course, the rare loss last year was a blowout one, 24-9. Casey turned the ball over 5 times, the team's most since 2018. It's the first time they lost by more than a score in 40 games. So division games are weird, but in this rivalry where Denver didn't lead by more than 10 points in any game over a 16-game span, I look at last year as more of a fluke, and I expect Chiefs over Denver Broncos dominance to continue this year.
Well, certainly the Broncos did some talking after that game, and so I'm sure that the Chiefs players will be they'll be well aware of that. But the fact is, the Broncos were a much different team towards the end of the year. They figured out a way to kind of dial back the offense and try to figure out what Russell Wilson was capable of doing, and Sean Payton did a good job of running the offense, and they were a better football team. And if you remember, they were in it until I think week 17 before out of an 18-week season. I think they still had a mathematical chance late into the season. I remember thinking they're still around, and they were. They beat some people. They pulled off some upsets. They were the better team that day. Yeah. There was no
5 turnovers. That'll do it.
There was no hand-wringing after the game. Like, we just got a rear end kick. Let's get on, and we got to get ready to go over across the pond and play a game in Germany. That was the attitude. They were really disgusted with the way they played, but they weren't the better team. Christmas Day, come on. I mean, come on. What the Raiders did? That was an all-time fluke. How many passes did the guy complete after the first quarter?
No,
zero. Zero, and they still won. No, they forced some of those turnovers. Some of them were just bad. The guy catches a ball and gets hit and drops it, the wide receiver. The bottom line was the Chiefs were not the better team that day. Mahomes had the flu. He looked like he had the flu. It looked like the entire team had the flu. And
Neal Jones might have had the flu. He was there after driving all the way through Kansas.
Yeah, and it cost by not going. I was going to go to the Kansas game and I would have been able to shoot them. Tearing down the goalposts against Oklahoma for one of the biggest wins they've had in a long time. Instead, we drive to Denver. It dumps a bunch of snow, and everyone kept saying, "Oh, we haven't had snow like this." Then we went to Buffalo. "Oh, we haven't had snow like this." Then we go to Baltimore in the playoffs. "Oh, it's been colder here than we've had in forever." Yeah, I had a great winter last year,
and the Miami game here at Arrowhead, where you're freezing your toes off. I mean,
no, it was I got frostbite on my left hand,
Right.
and it's still not normal. Scott Reese, our sports director, his IFB kept getting disconnected, and he, Neal, can you call me back in? And so I had to take my gloves off and call him back in 15 times. It was a great night all the way around. Thank God they won that game.
behind the scenes of the KC5 Sports
Oh,
Department.
no, it wasn't behind the scenes. My hands froze on TV. It was great.
Right, this is taking you behind the scenes content you only get here on the stream. I was going to say, well, Neal, it's a problem with sending you on the road. We're getting bad weather everywhere you go, but hey, then again, it followed you to Kansas City.
But seriously, that was a warning sign that, wait a
Sure.
minute, something's wrong
Yes.
with this football team. For an Andy Reid team to turn the football over and it was, you could point to about 5 different people on mistakes. McCall Hardman, he fumbles a punt that he shouldn't have returned.
That was bad.
That set up a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes had 2 ill-advised throws where he wasn't getting any help. It reminded me a little bit of the Super Bowl game against Tampa Bay.
Sure.
He just was getting poured in on.
Well, that's why I think it was so bad, because the Raiders lost at Christmas Day. They could have won. They almost did. It was a 1-score game. You almost never see the Chiefs get blown out, and I think that comp to the Tampa Bay Super Bowl is true. That was 31-9. This was 24-9. You just don't see the Chiefs literally get beat every facet of the ball. But that was in Denver. This game that we're talking about here, it's at Arrowhead. So, hey.
And it's later in the year. This is November 10th. Who's going to be playing quarterback by November
Right.
10th for the Broncos? Are they going to be playing the rookie Bo Nix, or are they going to go with their veteran? I mean, but I know this. Sean Payton can coach. Okay, he can really coach. They've had some guys up there they thought could coach, but couldn't. They had some guys up there they thought could play quarterback. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback.
Well, I
this
think
year.
Drew Lock could have played quarterback if Vic Fangio didn't ruin the Lee Summit his career.
I agree,
Completely
100%.
tanked.
Oh.
And we saw him have success with a better situation for the Seattle Seahawks. But you know what? I don't hate it because it caused the Broncos to continue to be irrelevant, which after years of losing to Peyton Manning, I think Chiefs fans will greatly enjoy. But enough about the Donkeys, Neal. After that game at Arrowhead, again, they don't go 2 mile high till the end of the season. Their next road game, back in Buffalo, back on the scene. Neal, this rivalry is just awesome. Okay, this will be the 16th time the two teams have met in the last 16 seasons. That's a rivalry. All right, another anticipated Mahomes-Allen battle on KCTV5. You see those 3 logos? Back to back to back. We're your home of the Chiefs here. Kansas City, of course, has owned the postseason part of this rivalry, ending Buffalo's season in the 2020 AFC Championship game, in the 13-second Divisional Round Classic in 2022, and again most recently in Orchard Park in the 2024 Divisional Round. However, because we're talking about the regular season here, the Bills have gotten regular season revenge in the form of an 18-point thumping at Arrowhead in 2021 on a rainy day. Then for the Chiefs' only home loss of 2022. And again last year with the 2017 victory in KC when Kadarius Toney's offsides penalty wiped out Travis Kelce's likely game-winning lateral. Andy Reid just 4-4 against his former assistant coach turned Bills head coach Sean McDermott. Of course, the Bills went 17 years without making the playoffs, but now they have reached the postseason in 6 of the last 7 seasons. But Neal, Josh Allen gets a lot of love, but he only has 1 career victory in the divisional round. And, of course, now he's going to have to do it without Stephon Diggs, but they add former Chiefs playoff hero Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who has the 4th most postseason touchdown catches in franchise history with 3. Still, you take it. He's tied with Byron Pringle. Either way, Bills, I don't like the Bills, but I love this game. Kansas City's won 4 straight games at Buffalo, including last year's heartbreaker. Neal, do you want to go back to the snowy Orchard Park?
I hope it won't be snowing up there on the 10th of November. But, you know, the Bills are a really rock-solid franchise led by a very, very talented coach. They are very confident with what they are doing. They are not oscillating. They are not firing people every 3 years. They did fire their offensive coordinator early last year. They had some issues, and the offense was significantly better after that. They've got a solid quarterback who can beat you with his legs or with his arm. But Stephon Diggs was a great player for so long for them, but he was really a problem in the locker room the last 2 seasons. You know, he wasn't happy with his deal. He wasn't happy. He wanted a different situation. I think he got tired of living in Buffalo. The bottom line was, that was what a lot of people said. He wanted the brighter lights. And so I don't know that maybe it might be better for them to have him move on. You hate to lose a great player like that if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, but the fact is maybe they'll be better for losing him. MVS will certainly want to make some big plays against the Chiefs. But I think we've seen that he is not the kind of guy. He's played with 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks or future Hall of Fame quarterbacks in Green Bay and Kansas City, and MVS couldn't put up big numbers. He is capable, and I like him. He seems like a nice guy, and I think he's a guy that the players liked and respected his teammates. But the bottom line is I don't think you could put a team on his back and go in and beat him. So I feel pretty good about the Chiefs against the Bills. If not in the regular season game, I think if they meet again in the playoffs, the same thing will happen.
Well, that's the thing. If you told me the Bills would beat the Chiefs in this, on November 17th in Week 11, I said, okay, well, Chiefs will beat the Bills in the playoffs. It's kind of like a win-win, lose-lose. I don't fear the Bills because Josh Allen has been a good quarterback, but at the end of the day, his teammates fail him around, and he's not able to pick up the rest of his team like Patrick Mahomes is most of the time. But with that said, I don't want to lose to the Bills. I just don't like Bills Mafia. I don't like that the Bills get a lot more respect than I think they deserve for a team that hasn't really done anything in the postseason.
Wait.
Yeah.
Look, the Chiefs went from 1970, January of 70, to when
Neal
Patrick
Jones,
Mahomes,
Bills defender on the show here.
No, I'm just saying you can be a great franchise. The Chiefs were a great franchise all through the 1990s, the winningest franchise in all of the NFL. And look at the way Arrowhead Stadium was, and look at the way they played defense. They dismantled people, but they didn't have a Super Bowl to show for it. I have nothing but respect. I think their fans come out. I think they remind me a lot of Chiefs fans.
Yes, they shovel the snow. They throw the snowballs.
It's not glamour.
They're a dedicated fan base. Yes, Neil.
Yes.
But we're talking like they're on the same level. Some people talk about like they're on the same level as the Chiefs or that Josh Allen is on the same level of Patrick Mahomes, and that is just not true. But listen, I don't want to, I don't want Bills fans all in my DMs again, telling me bad things about my, I don't want that. So with that, we're going to move on to an easier opponent.
So now we can talk about this is as close as you're going to get to a bye week.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to have Mahomes start, but against the Panthers, he might be leaving. We might bring all the freshmen in, all those guys in off the bench and get their Letterman's jackets.
I'll spare you the breakdown. If you want to read more about the Panthers, you can go to KCD5.com. Only thing I'll mention, the last time the Chiefs played at Carolina, another Eric Berry mention, because Kansas City was down 17-0. They came back to win thanks to an Eric Berry pick six and a Cairo Santos game-winning field goal. Hey, Chiefs at Panthers. Panthers were the worst team in the NFL last year.
That was the game. The Chiefs starting the bus that was going to carry the starting units to the stadium took a wrong turn, ended up in South Carolina instead of North Carolina, and then they came in and came back from that big deficit and they won. The Carolina Panthers were a lot better back then.
They were. Ron Rivera, Cam Newton,
they have,
Christian McCaffrey.
I think, the worst owner in the NFL right now. Yeah. And
so let's talk more about that 2016 game than this one. But no, in all seriousness, the Chiefs need to win this game, especially whatever they come out of the Bills. They can't overlook this game, as we saw with a bad Colts team not too long ago. But moving on to Week 13, November 29th. Neil, you can't spend Black Friday in the Walmart parking lot waiting to buy your family a bunch of video games. Why? Because you're going to have leftovers in the fridge and Chiefs football on TV, specifically Amazon Prime. Chiefs playing on Black Friday against the Raiders. Kansas City's won 16 of the last 19 games against the Raiders. But as we know, the most recent loss came, and it was not pretty. Raiders also won an Arrowhead in 2021 when they had a victory lap around Arrowhead for John Gruden. That was the Kansas City Stars' only loss that year. So the Raiders have had a little success at Arrowhead. But, especially coming after a Panthers game, we shall see what this game has in store. What do you think of the Raiders coming back to Arrowhead? Do you expect another victory lap?
The biggest issue that Chiefs fans are going to have, if you're a Missouri Tiger fan and you're going to the game over in Columbia earlier that day against the University of Arkansas at Pro Field, you need to have something other than black. You can't wear your black and gold and then walk into Arrowhead. It will mix everybody up. So remember, bring your red stuff underneath, and you can take off the black stuff after after hopefully Mizzou clobbers Arkansas. I'm not a big fan of that. I feel bad because I think it will keep the crowd down for Mizzou. That part of it I don't like very much, playing on Black Friday. But the fact is, at least it's not head-to-head. It'll be a night game. It'll be weird seeing the Chiefs on a Friday, but will be very festive. It'll kick off the holiday weekend.
Neil, I'm double-checking something, but I might have good news for you. This is live research. Mizzou football schedule. I don't think they actually play on Black Friday this year. I think they play on the following Saturday, We're looking it up, folks, for you Mizzou fans.
Why would they not play on Black Friday?
They are playing on November 30th, Saturday, Arkansas. So the Chiefs on Friday, Mizzou, Arkansas on Saturday. There you go. No excuse, Neal. No excuse.
Yes, I like that. I'll be able to go to both games.
There you go. I think it's good. All right, moving on to another divisional round foe. 4. We're putting up the 4s. Fourth quarter, Neal. Crunch time. Chiefs hosting the Chargers December 8th, Sunday Night Football. I put up the 4 fingers, Neal, because, well, Kansas City used to be known for finishing the year strong. Patrick Mahomes won 23 of their last 26 December games before losing 3 December games last year. Now they got a Chargers team that might be better this time of the year. This is Kansas City's 5th and final primetime showdown on the schedule. But Neal, as we know, Chiefs have dominated the AFC West, winning 48 of the last 55 games against their rivals. Listen, this starts an important December. They cannot stumble into the postseason like they did last year, Neal.
Well, you can.
You can, but I don't want that.
This is not.
I don't want the
football.
negativity going in.
Look, I think that we've all seen that in the NFL, the margin for error is not very good. So that if you have multiple turnovers, you are vulnerable to being beaten anywhere at any time by anybody, including the Carolina Panthers, the team I said that was the human bye. The fact is, in the NFL, the talent level, every team has talent. And while I would not expect the Chiefs to lose a lot of games late in the year because Andy Reid's teams usually get on a run, and as I pointed out earlier, they have a history of having winning streaks late in the year.
Right.
So I would expect the Chiefs are going to be rock solid. If they're healthy, they're going to be rock solid going into December.
And after that home game, they head to Cleveland on December 15th.
A playoff team last year,
yeah.
But nobody knows how the Browns will be this year.
It's the start of 3 games over an 11-day stretch, so you want to get off on the right foot. And, hey, it's Travis Kelce's return to his hometown for just the second time in his career, Neal. The Cleveland Heights native helped lead Kansas City to a 16-point win back in 2018 with 2 touchdowns and 99 yards. Hasn't been back since. Kevin Stefanski, of course, has coached the past 4 seasons. Browns coming off just the team's 3rd double-digit win season since 1994, but they went to the playoffs. No, not Deshaun Watson, who they traded for in 2022. It was Joe Flacco who led them. Kansas City, of course, has some recent history over the Browns, though, opening the season in 2021, where they turned a 12-point halftime deficit into a 3-point win, thanks to a cool 197 yards from Tyreek Hill. Then, of course, in the postseason, Tyreek Hill, listen, you put up 197 yards, I got to mention your name. I'm sorry. That'll be the last time we do. Then Kansas City, of course, in the playoffs, ended Cleveland's season when Chad Henne stepped in for the injured Mahomes and finished off a 5-point victory.
That game was you talk about a scary playoff win. That was about as scary as it comes. A Browns player diving for the goal line, extends the football, has a huge hit on the goal line by the Chiefs' defensive secondary. Some would say a spear. I don't think so. Helmet to helmet.
Good with me.
I thought it was a football play. But the bottom line is, and then of course we saw Mahomes running the option and get hurt.
Yep.
We haven't seen that again. After that, but
we saw him run a lot in the Super Bowl, but not exactly
options.
Like that. Yeah, not that 4th and 1 play was about as close. I don't know, but that was in the Super Bowl with the game on the line, so I'm more okay with it then than when you're leading at halftime against the Browns. But hey, Chad Henne might have his name in the Ring of Honor one day because we learned that anything is possible.
I love Chad Henne. I don't think he's going to the Ring of Honor.
No, I agree. But the first of 2 playoff heroics.
But look what Andy Reid does. His quarterbacks get hurt. He's got guys who can play behind him. They don't have a huge fall off, and they are able to play.
And now we have Carson Wentz.
And what you don't want is a 6 or 7 week absence. You want a 2-week absence, or a game and a half absence is what you're hoping for.
Andy Reid's had good backup quarterbacks. Chase Daniel, Matt Moore played a key role. Chad Henne, Blaine Gabbert won a game last year, and now Carson Wentz steps in.
They're always ready to play.
They're ready to go. And finally, we are ready to go here with a short week game because the Chiefs are going to host the Houston Texans, who went from a 3-win team in 2022 to the divisional round of the playoffs last year. They're considered a top contender. C.J. Stroud, Neal, you saw him have his name called right here in Kansas City last year, and he became NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Chiefs, last time they played the Texans, needed a Jerick McKinnon walk-off touchdown to win in overtime in 2022, but of course the fonder memories come at Arrowhead. Most recently, with a 14-point season-opening win, Clyde Edwards-Helaire ran for 137 yards in his first game against the Texans that year. Then, in the 2020 divisional round. Kansas City had a cool 24-0 first quarter deficit, turned that into a 51-31 victory, eliminating then Justin Reed's Texans from the playoffs for the second time in the last 3 trips. Of course, that was the first time in league history a team had won a playoff game by 20 points after trailing by 20 points. Of course, the Texans could not draft Patrick Mahomes because the Chiefs drafted him 2 spots ahead of Deshaun Watson to the Texans a couple picks later back in 2017. That has worked out well, but hey, DeMeco Ryans has now C.J. Stroud, who's a top contender. Texans, a lot of people think this matchup might be for an AFC bye potentially at the end of the year.
Well, certainly the Texans expect to be in the running for the playoffs and be a player just like they were last year. They were one of maybe the biggest surprise story in my mind for the entire season when you look at what they accomplished. They got a guy who can coach, and they got a guy who can play quarterback. And in the NFL, if you have that, you have a chance.
And on Christmas Day, rounding out the 3rd game in 11 days. Neal, this is a tough stretch. They're going on the road to the Steel Curtain. Pittsburgh is for a 2nd straight season. Chief Kingdom is going to wake up on Christmas morning with presents under the tree and a Chiefs game on TV. But for the first time in franchise history, Kansas City is going to play a game on a Wednesday. Yes, the 25th of December falls on a Wednesday, yet we're still playing football. I didn't make this decision. Don't yell at me, okay? And they're hoping to make up for the coal left behind on Christmas Day to the Raiders. We've talked about that. Aiden O'Connell did not complete a pass after the 2-minute mark of the first quarter. The Chiefs had back-to-back turnovers that led to Raiders' defensive scores in a 7-second span. But the good news is, the Chiefs won a cool Christmas Day game against the Broncos. Before that, Dontari Poe had a touchdown pass. So, Neal, I'm hoping they land in the middle of those 2 games, okay? It doesn't have to be the greatest game of all time, but not that clunker. But the good news is Patrick Mahomes loves Pittsburgh, Neal. He hasn't been back since 2018 when he made his 3rd career start, and all he did was throw 6 touchdown passes, which still ties a career high. Travis Kelce had 109 yards. Andy Reid only 4-4 all-time against Mike Tomlin as Chiefs head coach. But he's got the last 2 matchups. If you remember, the Chiefs did most recently play the Steelers in that wild card playoff winner where they blew them out. Mahomes had 5 touchdowns, one of them to Nick Allegretti. Travis Kelce even threw a touchdown pass. A lot of interesting games in this rivalry. Do you think Russell Wilson will add to that lore in this Chiefs-Steelers matchup on Christmas?
Oh, it'll be interesting to see what happens. People are saying that the coach, as good as he's been, Mike Tomlin, is kind of on the hot seat, that they need a good team. They did not feel like they've replaced Ben Roethlisberger. First of all, Roethlisberger probably played 2 years too long in terms of his ability to really be a big winner. That Steelers team that they beat a couple years ago in the playoffs, that was Ben Roethlisberger's final game, yep. And they kind of limped in there as a team, and he literally limped in. This will be interesting. Russell Wilson has a lot of motivation to prove that what happened to him
if he's the
Denver,
quarterback. Now, this is week 17.
I
we don't know what the heck's going to look in this game.
Exactly. It could be a completely – no one knows exactly. But the point is, if Russell Wilson gels, and if this football team, the Steelers team, plays good football, they could very well be in the hunt for a playoff position, and this could be a massive game for them, even if it isn't a massive game for the Chiefs. Although we've seen the last couple of years, in December,
it will be
almost all the big games are big for the Chiefs because they're always battling for home field advantage throughout the playoffs, which they proved last year you don't really have to have.
Regardless of the Steeler, of how good they are, I think this will be a game because they're not going to have the number 1 overall seed wrapped up in Week 17. Maybe in 18 if they're lucky. But again, the AFC is good. The Chiefs have a lot of new parts. We will see what's in store.
Chiefs, I'm going to predict it right now. The Chiefs, I think, are going to be unless Mahomes gets hurt, I think the Chiefs are going to be one of the best 2 teams in the AFC, just like they were the last couple of years. I think they're right back in the middle of it.
Some positivity from Mr. Jones. I like it. Here's your schedule as a whole. We mentioned the Broncos. That is who the Chiefs will end the season in Mile High. We don't know that for sure. Date, time, network. As we mentioned, a lot of games here on KCD5, so we'll have your coverage on those game days and throughout the week for preview and reaction all season long. We are really excited to bring you Chiefs coverage. So, Neal, I'll end you on this. What kind of record are you feeling when you look at this as a whole? It's tough. We got to do math with 17 games now, but
I think they go 12-5 probably, and that might I have question marks about their offensive tackles. I have question marks about their pass rush. I have question marks about the wide receiver position. early on in the season, and not just because of Rashee Rice's situation.
It'll take time to gel, for sure.
I think they're going to try to work in a veteran in Hollywood Brown, who, by the way, I was talking to a scout who works in the East. He told me, hey, your guy is running. Hollywood Brown is still running. He is one of the quickest guys in the NFL. Question mark with this guy is, the scout said, I think it's his hands. I think he runs great routes. I think he's got great speed. I question his hands. I thought that was interesting. But he agreed with me that people should not expect too much from Xavier Worthy the first 5, 6, 7 weeks. Right. He said Andy Reid will find ways to use him, but rookies have got to read a lot of things and read a lot of defenses they don't do in college, and so give him some time. He's going to be good.
One of many storylines we will follow, but Neal, there's a lot of ancillary parts here, but the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl in back-to-back years where they had flaws. They consistently had issues. Sometimes, last year the defense was pretty good, but the offense let them down. The year before that, defense inconsistency. Injuries are the biggest factor that we don't know about. But if healthy, Neal, I really like this team's chances. Put me down for 13-4. I know that's a little ambitious, but I think this is a better Chiefs team in the regular season than either of the last 2 years because the defense is better. I think they have more weapons that might take a little bit of time to gel, but I think there's a number of players playing at a really high level, especially bringing Chris Jones back.
Do you remember the Super Bowl loss to the Bucs?
I try not to, but yes, unfortunately.
And, I mean, that's the kind of scary thing. If you don't get consistent tackle play, they were not consistent last year at offensive tackle. They had more penalties than any other team in the entire league at the offensive tackle situation. They've got to hope that some of the young guys step up and do something they have never done before, and that is start and succeed in the NFL. That's a big if. If you don't win at the pass rush position, either getting after the quarterback or protecting the quarterback, it can be problematic. It'll be interesting.
Mahomes is mobile, and he's able to make up for that some. But, yeah, it's not great having a big if as your left tackle. But, hey, that's why Andy Reid, one of the best coaches the sport has ever seen, it's his job to figure out a way to make this work. And in Big Red, we trust here in Kansas City. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us here on a Wednesday night or whenever you're watching this, whenever you're listening to this. Remember, Neal and I, you can catch us Saturday, Sunday nights on KCTV5 over the air, 10:30 every weekend of the year. And then, of course, on the stream here, 5:30 live Monday through Friday. We are talking Chiefs, and we are excited to bring you football here on KCTV5. A lot of fun games. Neal, they're going for history. 3 straight Super Bowls. We will be along for every step of the ride. Thanks for watching.